Welcome to the Sunday Night Chat. My name's Mike, in case you don't know that yet. Uh, this is where I kind of talk about the week or whatever else is on my mind, what's going on in life, and sometimes current events. Sometimes I touch on things that people see as political. Oh, you gotta watch out for that one, man. I've got all these, you know, the sensitive types we've been talking about the last few weeks here that man, you go against what their belief system is, and you're just this horrible person. It's the craziest thing. Really crazy. Interesting week. We're going to talk about watches in this video. Okay, just that toe. Because I had a good watch day this week. Something interesting happened. Uh, and it's something. It's a funny thing with what's been going on with me. I've always had a watch ever since I was a kid. My dad always wore a watch, so I thought I would talk a little bit about the history of me with watches, so you guys understand where it's coming from. You have to understand too. It's a different age today, right? People all have their phones in their pockets, and when I got my phone it was 2004. First time I got a cell phone, flip phone. Matter of fact, I wasn't going to do this, but you know me, I'm so pro. I've got a bunch of them in here, right? Flip phones. Uh, shit, I should have planned this out better. Jeez, come on now. I got phones, more phones. There's a phone. This is funny. There's a phone right here. Hey, Robin and Patrick, they sent me this contraption. I talked about how I was going to make something to put around my neck for when I'm riding a bike, because I think that it's going to be a thing with the channel where I can kind of cruise around the city on the bike. There's a strap that goes around your back with this thing that makes it more secure, so it doesn't bounce around a lot. But look at that, man. That's no joke. But even better, if I'm doing a watch video or something now, I can do this, and I can be kind of like talking and showing something, looking through the screen. That's a big deal, because I've been setting up all kinds of crazy, ridiculous things, like standing around the tripod and everything. Who knew something like this even existed? I guess most of you would have looked that up by now. But I got too many other things going on in my brain, so I'm actually, what's happening? I'm beginning to rely on you. You're Robin and Patrick. It's honestly, man, friends and people here on this channel, they're like, you guys are becoming more like family than my family. It's the craziest thing. Like, you listen to what I say and then things happen. It is the most bizarre thing. We're gonna get in that with the watch stuff here. I wanted to find something else in here. Like, I have a whole drawer of old technology. I'll do this another time, but I mean, I've got a pager from the 90s. Look, this might have been my first phone. Look at that. Remember that? The Star Trek thing? And then we had these flip phones. Right? A couple more Motorola's here. All right, and we had smartphones. Got this another one here. Of course, I got one on that. Where did I put the contraption? Got one on the contraption just to show you how it works, because I'm using a phone right now to record. These are fun every once in a while, like every couple of years. I remember that they're here, and I charge them just to look at the images and whatnot that are still on these. And yeah, here's an iPod. Look, I do need, I'll buy it. Has to be in good condition and free of space, but I think it's the 160 gigabyte iPods. Because I have one more that's working. The other ones went to crap. I did a deal with a guy to rebuild one of them and to rebuild two of them, and it really didn't work out. I mean, he did it, but it's a long friggin' story. One of the things you see on this channel is that you see me get into things, and I learn how to do things, and I get good at it, and next thing you know, that's like another side hustle for me to make money. And every single time that's happened, it's because I couldn't find what I wanted. Or I didn't want to depend on somebody else to do it for me. And there's only so much you can do, man. I could learn a computer program. I could learn how to edit if I really wanted to do that, but there's so much time involved. Let's say you put all the time into editing, like learning how to do it, and then all that time editing. Well, now I can't do anything else, and I got to make money. And YouTube, while it does pay me, thank you for watching and liking the videos. And there's a new thing now where you can like promote the video or something. You guys should give that a shot. Liking the videos, commenting the videos, sharing the videos, that all helps. Arguing in the comments underneath, that's all good. But I'm not at a point where I can live on it. Better look at the watch. I'm wearing the Seiko 5 reissue from the 60s, and this was reissued in the 90s. So this is technically a 60-year-old watch design. The UFO Seiko on the bracelet here, and it's cool. So, yeah, so I have to depend on other people from time to time. And when I'm flush, I pay to have things done. And if I'm not, I try to work out some sort of deal with people. A lot of the time, people just want to help you out, and that's why I do favors for people that are local here. You know, it's a thing. It's a symbiotic relationship between us all as human beings. It's just a fun thing to do. So, yeah, I can't do everything myself, and I have to rely on other people for stuff. I don't know why I went off on a tangent there, but anyhow, back to the watch thing. In 2004, I got a cell phone, stopped wearing a watch. But before that, I always wore a watch. And my dad, what he would do is he would buy a watch and he'd wear that for years. But when he would get the new watch, he'd give me the old watch. And so this is one of his watches. Now, this is a story. It's not going to be an overly pleasant story for those of you that are overly sensitive. Don't worry, I'm okay. I'm okay now. This was when I was a kid. I'm okay now. And I found this watch again on eBay, and I should have bought it because I found a couple of them in different conditions. And there was one for like $89 that was like in mint condition. There's many watches similar to it. This is my watch. There are many like it, but this one is mine. I must master my watches. I master my life. You know where that comes from, you know, leave a comment in the bottom. So, because it's not watch, it's rifle, if you know what that is. So I found this exact watch with the exact indices and everything else, and I should have bought it. But it's a mechanical watch, manual, meaning you got to wind it. And I'm not winding watches anymore, but it's a Waltham. All right. Waltham's been in the watch business for a long time, and I hope that's focusing for you. That's the back of it here. If anybody wants a screenshot, and you never know, you might have one of these in your collection. Show you a couple details. I'll do another video, you know, highlighting this watch in particular. I'll find it. I just think it would be nice to have it. I brought this to the watch shop originally when I first discovered it, and it was going to be a lot of money to restore this watch. It actually ticks. It works. The reason it doesn't have a crystal and a second hand anymore, and it's busted like that, is because of my mother. You know, she was such a like she could just, you know, we've talked about it before. She was kind of this tyrant bully type of person, and she would flip out, man. And matter of fact, there's another part of this story, and it's right there. I could jump up and get it right now. I'm so pro. I should have had this out for you already. And I know I've talked about these things before. Pretty certain I've talked about these things before. But there was this one morning, man. And I was I was a kid. I was in single digits, right? I was probably like 9 or 10 years old. I think maybe 10. We'll call it 10 years old. And it was just this crazy morning where, which it would happen, you know. I'm very lucky that even when I was young and my mom was doing these things, I didn't personalize it. I knew it wasn't my fault. I knew there was something wrong with her. The kids that have like childhood trauma, and that sort of thing from that time. There's a weird PTSD thing built in with that when it comes to women in general in my life who are mean and nasty and screaming and vulgar language and that sort of thing. Like that like does a thing in my brain where I'm like jars me, you know, it makes me pause, and I don't want to be around that because of this stuff. But this was one of these mornings, man. And I loved my dad, and my dad would, you know, hand me down these things like this watch. And there was another thing that he bought me when I was a kid, and I found it and I bought myself one. And this was a piggy bank that this is obviously ain't the same one, but he bought this in the gift shop of the hospital the day I was born. This little porcelain Santa Claus piggy bank boot, because I was born on December 28th. So my mom was in labor during Christmas, 1966. And that morning, she came into my room before school and just had this episode, man. Hit me and doing all this crazy stuff and destroyed the room because the room was a mess. It's kind of ironic. And I always think of this because it reminds me of boot camp. Because the drill instructors would freak out from time to time, and they would just kick everybody's wall locker open, turn everything over, and knock the racks over and all this. And like, you got 5 minutes, put this back together. And all the other guys there, like, oh my God, it's like they're all stressed out and everything else. I'm like, that's like Tuesday for me, when I was, a kid, little kid. My mom did this shit all the time. It's amazing how she actually prepared me for Paris Island. Like, thanks, Mom. Like, nothing in Paris Island ever bothered me. Like, all the yelling, screaming, and everything. I was like, you guys are pussies compared to my mother. I mean, come on. Like, seriously. That's it might be funny to some of you. It's not even a joke. It's the friggin' truth, man. At any rate, at one point, I've told you this before, imagine this as a sport. She could take a drawer full of shit, pull it out of the bureau. This is before drawer slides and mechanical hardware and all this. These are the old days, all right? When I was a kid, we had furniture. It was probably 100 years old then. She could pull the drawer out. It would separate from the case of the chest of drawers and fling it across the room with all the shit in it and hit you with it. And you could be in motion. Like, imagine this. This should be a video game. They should make a video game like where little kids are running away from abusive parents. That's what it should be. Like the spoon, the shoe, and you turn just right. I learned as a kid when I was real young, if I turn just right with the wooden spoon, like she's bam. And if I turn just right, I get her to hit the hip bone and the wooden spoon would snap. After she snapped about 4 spoons, she went on to, I don't even know what else, the belt, whatever. There were so many objects that happened, getting thrown at you, getting hit with it, whatever. I can laugh about it because I handled it well. My sister, not so much. She's not with us anymore. But you could do that, and they're throwing. I saw like Donkey Kong in my brain. I just see that as like this crazy person chasing you around. It's crazy. And that morning, she broke this friggin' watch, man, and I was heartbroken, because my dad gave that to me. And this is the 70s. How was I going to fix that? But I've kept it all these years. So I'm going to replace this watch. I'm going to find that again, and I'm going to, because they're not that expensive, and I'll make that happen just to have it. She also broke this that day. And that was I remember crying over this, man, because it was like this cherished thing in the family. And so for 10 years of my life, it was always this thing that would come up every year. Remember your bank, and your dad bought that for you the day you were born. And there's a couple other things that are in the other room, religious things that my dad gave me on the day I was born too. So at any rate, that's the start of my watch journey. And he'd give me another watch at some time. I think what happened next was the Christmas. So it was probably that year or junior high. Yeah, because I was cutting school. Patterson, New Jersey, man. There was this guy, Ron, that I would cut school with from time to time. and my dad, for Christmas, gave me, it was a Timex. It was a nice watch, though. It was a stainless steel Timex, stainless steel case, waterproof, white dial, Arabic numerals, like a military type watch. Black, I think it had a black strap on it. But it wasn't like a cheap, to me, Timex. Now, we'll get into the watches in a second. But I had that watch, and my dad gave it to me, so I wore it, and I loved it. It was cool to me, because my dad gave it to me. But one day we cut school, and we would get on the bus and go to the Willowbrook Mall. And we did that. And keep in mind, we're in junior high. So, 13? What are you, like 12, 13, 14? In that range, right? I don't remember if it was 7th grade or 8th grade. I think it was 7th grade. And because I was a like a little hoodlum in Patterson, man. It was crazy what I did. Oh, I got a funny story to tell you. I forgot to tell you when I talked about the adult stuff video. That's kind of funny. I've told the story before, but I'll tell it here again as an example of some of the things we would do as kids. At any rate, we're on the bus. There's some high school kids. Guess what they're doing? They're cutting school too. And they're big kids, right? So they're like 17, 18 years old. And they mug us on the bus and took our watches. And so I lost that watch. And I don't remember what bullshit story I had to come up with my dad, but that was a thing. So after that, I don't remember all the watches after that I had for now, but just a quick funny story that popped into my brain from Patterson from about, I was probably 10, and we would do this thing. It's just funny. It was a total accident, but you as a kid, you notice things, and you're lower to the ground, man. So you see shit that adults don't see. You know what I'm saying? Adults just overlook things. You're here, adults are over there. So anything that's this high off the ground, it's right there. It's like chin level. You see it. And when people throw out the trash, you're looking at it. And so there'd be boxes. People would be cleaning out their attics or cleaning out their garages or their basements. You get the picture. And my buddy, John, lived in this apartment complex. His dad was a cop in Patterson. And was right there, right on that corner of his street. Somebody had thrown out all these dirty magazines. And we're talking, it wasn't Playboy. It was the hardcore, like Hustler and like Euro porn, stuff like the stuff that shows everything, right? Including ones where people are screwing and everything else. It was hardcore pornographic material. And it had rained that night. But the sun was out. So it was getting warm. It was in the morning. And we picked this up. I mean, you're a kid. You're noticing this. You pick it. Oh my God! But it was soggy wet. So I come up with this idea. It's like, let's put the pages out on these cars to dry them out. So that's what we do, right? And there's these cars parked on this street, and we cover the hood of the car, the windshield. The sun's this way, so we're getting the side of the car, the windows, the hood of the car, and we move to the next car. And after we coated about 6 cars, I'm like, it's probably dry by now. So we run back to the first car and we go to, they're not coming off, man. That stuff is now glued to these cars. We wallpapered 6 cars with hardcore pornography, man. And you can't get it. You would have to sit there with a razor blade to scrape this off. Or maybe a smart person like a grown-up would hit it with a hose or something. That would probably work. But it was, we grabbed it and tried to get off and just ripped. And we tried to grab more. And on that first car, we tried to rip it all off. And then for like less than a minute. And then we all looked at each other. It was like 3 or 4 of us. And we were just like, and we just bolted, man. And I'm telling a story here because if you're from Patterson, New Jersey, and you were there in the 70s, and you heard or knew, or if it was you, whose car was once plastered with hardcore pornography in the summertime, that was me. So sorry. Maybe I can make amends now somehow. I can only imagine what those people thought when they came out to their cars. Like, what the hell's going on? It was early in the morning on a weekend, so kids are out running around doing their thing. Adults are sleeping in, man. You know, these are blue collar people. They probably didn't even notice it till like 11 o'clock in the morning, and they went out there like, what the hell? And you know, like whoever is the guy, I'm assuming it was the guy that put the porn out at the curb in the first place. Like, imagine if that was the wife. Like, we're married now. You've got to get this stuff out of the house. I'm not going to live under this roof with this porn in this roof. Do you love me or not? Am I not enough for you? Throw that stuff out. Okay, honey. Okay. I'm going to put it out there. And then the next day they go outside and their car is now plastered. See, baby, you should just let me keep the porn collection. I never thought about that aspect of it till right now. At any rate, I remember high school with watches. And I remember I had a black Pulsar. That was cool. I bought it with my dad. We went to the mall, bought it in the mall. Always had a watch. Always wore a watch. I just don't remember all the watches. And I look at my old pictures and you'll see I'm wearing a watch. But even I can't remember what all those watches were. I know that when I was in the Marines, when I got out of boot camp at Paris Island for infantry school, I bought myself the G-Shock, and that was 1985. So the G-Shock came out in 1983. That is I don't know that I'd wear it. I'm not a big digital watch guy, obviously, but that means a lot to me. That watch, the thing is that's what you call a screw back. So that has a back on it like this that actually screws on. And these days, you look at the back of most G-Shocks and there's like 4 screws in the corners. And I just don't like it. It doesn't impact on its water resistance or anything. It just seems cheesy to me. And I know it's a silly way to look at it. But it would be cool to have one of those vintage G-Shocks in good condition just for the memory. So that I wore that till the battery went dead and it was beat up. I bought another one. I had that when I came out here. And then I had it hanging from the visor in my old Dodge pickup. Eventually that went dead. I just left it there. I shouldn't have thrown it out because all it needed was a new battery. But then I had those Casios with the gold dials, with the bezel, and I remember buying watches. I always had a watch. But again, 2004, no more with the watch because of the phone. And then we know the story, right? So this is the watch. It's been maybe 3 years now that my buddy gave me this watch in a trade. This is the Seiko Turtle, and it was really, really beat up. The crystal was scratched, and turns out that the movement was all beat up too, and he was a machinist. He wore it every day. So you see the bezel, right? That's this part here with the blue. It's all scratched up, right? That's mostly all from him. But it was a cool watch. I knew kind of a little bit about it at the time, and I took the watch. This was, a $500-$600 watch when it first came out. I believe this one here is from 2017, I think. And he went to the store and bought this new. A little big for him. That's why he wanted to kind of unload it. So I took it, and then that was it, man. That was all she wrote. Next thing you know, we're on the phone one night. He's like, "Oh, you should just buy the Willard." I got on eBay. I found a good deal on a Willard. Then I got into Willards, which is the watch that Martin Sheen wore in Apocalypse Now, which is the 6105 Seiko from like 1968, 69. And got into those, and I got into the Chinese watches, and I bought homage versions of that watch, and I did videos on it, and some of those videos have a good amount of views. So I learned more, bought more watches like AliExpress stuff, and then I would sell them, and then I right off the jump, right from the jump, I bought a boon strap for one of those watches because it was a bronze watch, and I had worn it on my wrist, and it discolored my wrist, so I wanted to put leather under it, and I was learning all this stuff. The thing about watches that you don't understand, like wristwatches, if you're a military guy into military history like I am, you know that wristwatches came about because of war. It's the military. The military has brought so much of what we wear every day into our lives. You can go all the way back to when men were wearing skirts and togas and shit like that. It was horses, riding horses that led to pants. All right. And then, now you see a guy walking around with trousers on, and you think that's tough because he's in the military. So then other men wanted to wear trousers because they would be associated with being masculine. That's fashion. So that's how things work. You see guys walking around now with camouflage on. Never been in the military, but it's become a trend, a fashion trend. That's what happened with watches. It was in World War One. I'm so pro. When World War One broke out, people were still doing pocket watches. This is my great-grandfather's pocket watch, which I've had serviced and a new crystal put on it. And this is a Technos. It's a Swiss watch. This is the strap that was on. It's a shoelace. And it was my father's grandfather that came to America and tiled the Holland Tunnel and worked on skyscrapers in New York City and all that stuff. And this was his watch, early 20th century watch here. And I got it running again. But back then what they would do is they would a couple different things they would do. They would either braze on lugs and then put it on their wrist, which is crazy. That's a big friggin' watch there. They probably had smaller pocket watches too at that time. But the other thing they would do is, and I've done all these screenshots of the old ads. They would make a leather strap for, a leather band for it. It was really cool. And then there was this separate leather piece that went over this that kind of snugly wrapped around that and snapped over and would hold that in place. I'm going to make one of those for this. That's coming. That's for me. It's not for sale. It's just because I want to do that. But yeah, so timepieces are a thing, you know. And then you start looking at the wristwatches from World War One, and it's so cool because they started making watches, you know. And then it was really big for aviators. It was really big, you know, the guys flying the biplanes and everything. But it was really big at that time because of trench warfare. And they would time the barrages, the artillery barrages. So they're bombing the crap out of the enemy to keep their heads down. And this guy's like, to the second, okay, whistles are blowing and guys are charging because they know that barrage is going to stop right now. And they got to get those guys across no man's land and start killing the enemy. So everything was timed. Wristwatch. That's what that came from. So before the war, men weren't wearing wristwatches. They had pocket watches. After the war, wristwatch became a thing. It became a cool thing, a masculine, cool man thing to do. Now you know. World War II comes along, and now it's a thing. Now they're actually issuing watches. So they got this thing called the Dirty Dozen, which was these 12 companies that made watches for the British. We had, you know, there's tons of companies. Waltham was a company that made watches. Bulova, which is an American company as well. Watches in America was a big thing in the 20th century. It was a big deal. So it's military-wise, it's cool, and that's one of my favorite things about watches. And dive watches in particular came about. Why? Well, that's why, man. It was they had there was this guy Panerai. I don't know if that was his name, but the Panerai watches were a thing that came about in the 30s, and he worked with Rolex. I can't recall if he had the case and Rolex did the movement or what, but I know he came up with the radio mirror, which was the lume, which was radioactive, which was a real problem because later, they didn't know it at the time, but the women that were painting the numerals on the dials were licking it to do it. And they gave themselves radiation poisoning. So they had mouth cancer, throat cancer, tongue cancer. It just killed people and ruined their lives. There was a movie made about it. I haven't seen it yet, but I should look into that. So eventually they came up with better system for that. But that was just a long time coming. It wasn't until like 1953 Blancpain had really the first watch that you could buy in a dive shop. So it was Blancpain, Zodiac, and then Rolex. So those were the three early companies with, you know, Blancpain I believe had the largest case. The Zodiacs were still pretty tiny, and Rolex was kind of like somewhere in between. Now Rolex had a waterproof watch beforehand, back in the early part of the 20th century. And there was this woman, I can't remember her name, but she'd swung across the English Channel. Then somebody broke a record, or they couldn't prove it, or whatever. So she was scheduled to do it again. And a guy from Rolex contacted her and made a deal where he provided her a Rolex watch that she wore around her neck on a necklace and swam across the English Channel. And then that was great advertising for Rolex. So Rolex got this reputation for being the first waterproof watch. But that wasn't to depth, you understand, right? So you take a watch and you put it under the water, and every 10 feet or so, there's just more and more pressure put on the watch, and leaks occur. So Blancpain was a company that they came up with a screw-down crown, and they came up with this two-piece screw back to the back side of the watch to make it more waterproof. And it's interesting. I've said this before. These old watches, you can find them. And they're worth so much money now because they're kind of rare, especially the ones that were specifically designed, made, pressed into, and used in the service during war. And you could prove it with provenance and all that. The crazy thing is, a modern watch today, an homage to the original that's made in China, is a better quality watch than the original. People ain't gonna like that I said that, but it's a fact. Like, you're not gonna take like a 1955, 56, 58, you know, Blancpain or a Rolex or something and go diving with it. You know what I'm saying? You're not doing that. So it's a funny place that we see ourselves in. I'm getting to this week, man. I'm getting to this week. This is shit. This whole friggin' video is gonna be about watches. Other than the little dirty story about the porn on the car, I gotta give you some chuckle along the way. So I gotta be me. So that's the thing, and I think dive watches are cool. Um, then there's these great stories, and I've got versions of all these watches where if I realized what I was doing, because I'm so pro, I'm not. I'm not. When I say I'm so pro, I'm saying I'm not professional at all. I would have had these watches out and given you the history, but I'll do. I've done that already in videos, but I'll do that for you guys someday. Um, but right around like the late 50s, the UDT teams from World War II came along and they needed a watch made, and then that was done. That's Tourneck Revel, which was actually a Blanc Pawn watch. We're going in the weeds here. A lot of you guys don't even care about this stuff, but you get into the 60s, and then Seiko. Seiko's been around since the 1800s in Japan, and the pilots during World War II, the kamikaze pilots, all that, they were all wearing Seikos. Seiko wasn't exactly promoting that history. World War II and everything. But we all know Japanese make good stuff. And so during Vietnam, our guys started buying Seikos because they were tough, they held up well, they did what they needed to do, and they were less money than a Rolex or a Tudor. And that's what happened. And then we've got this whole thing with the Mac V SOG. And I will show you this. Apologies. Because I recently got a more modern version of that. Well, a while ago. I have bought a couple watches recently, and I keep saying I'm not going to buy watches. But that's because things are happening here that are good for me. So this is kind of a modern version of the Mac V SOG. And it's the Seiko 5. It's pretty small. Pretty small watch on the wrist. It doesn't have a lot of presence. You guys can see that here. I have a larger wrist, so that's a thing. And military watches, you want what's called the Arabic numerals, which is funny to use the term Arabic, but what it means is 1 through 12, like what we have here. And they're loomed. And a Seiko 5, what's the 5 things? I think it's stainless steel case, waterproof, 4 o'clock crown, day-date feature, waterproof. There's these 5 criteria for this, but that's what this is. This meets all the 5 criteria. It's a beautiful little watch. I want to make a Vietnam era style band for this. That'll be coming. Anyhow, the Mac V SOG guys, which I always kind of forget what that is, the acronym, what it stands for. I know what it is, but every time I want to repeat it, it jumps out of my brain. You know how that happens? But these guys were special operators that were working outside Vietnam. They were going over into Cambodia and everything, and they couldn't have a U.S.-made watch. They couldn't have a watch that was issued to the troops. So this was one of the watches that they were wearing, because you can get caught behind enemy lines and you can't prove that they were an American. Such a great reputation with that, and then boom, we roll into late 60s, early 70s, and now Seiko's making real dive watches. Keeping in mind now, diving became a hobby in the 50s, end of the 40s, after World War II, because of the popularity of underwater demolition teams and what was going on with ships being blown up in harbors and all that, and those guys were wearing waterproof watches. So that this hobby is progressing. War is happening. Every war we get new technology. I remember in high school I had the Vietnam War. What were the 3 things that we got out of that? It was helicopters, cold weather gear, I think troop transport and helicopters or something. I can't remember, but I remember there's 3 things we had to know in high school for that, for passing a test. But every war, you get certain technology out of it. And by 1970 or so, dive watches were leaps and bounds, obviously, above what they were 20 years earlier. And again, you see it. It's iconic. It's in the films and everything else. So, and then your dads have them and your grandfathers have them. And it's just a cool thing. And as a man, it's one of the few things, like I'm not a jewelry guy per se. Now, you'll notice I'm wearing this ring here. I've told this before, but I'll tell it again. This ring is kind of beat up now. It's really beat up. This comes into focus for you. So my grandmother bought this ring, and you could see through it. I hope you could see that. The stones are set. I hope this is reading on the camera. It's silver, and the feathers are all enameled, and there's like, diamonds in the eyes and rubies on the side. It's probably costume jewelry. Um, it was in mint condition, and she bought it in the 70s at a garage sale for 25 cents. And I was, 9, 10 years old, and I brought it home. My dad went, "Oh, nice ring." And he stole my friggin' ring, man. It didn't fit on me anyhow. But he stole it, and then he wore it every day of his life. And it was an ongoing joke between us. When am I getting my ring back? He's like, "You'll get your ring back one day." And what he meant by that is, when he's dead, I'll get the ring back. And that's what happened. My dad had a great sense of humor. So that's it. I'll wear this ring once in a while. Once in a while, I have a little thing I'll put on my pinky. It's rare. And now I'm back to the watch thing. And the watches are fun. They're just fun. And they're interesting. So what's happened now is that I'm watching a lot of watch content. And I'm doing my little, like, I created the Paluca watch channel. And it's a funny thing. Paluca is not a positive term. Now, as a kid, I remember Paluca Joe. Remember Paluca Joe? The bazooka bubblegum guy? And he kind of came off as this oafish sort of guy in a way, but he had wisdom. He had matter-of-fact, blue-collar, straight-to-the-point wisdom. And they were great. And you had the little fortune on there, on the comic. I got a few of them bouncing around in some drawers somewhere. So I remember that. But I remember, Paluca was always, in my mind, you can look it up. I should have, again, I'm so pro. I would have the definition out for you right now. Maybe I'll do it. It's not positive. It's like, not a smart person, maybe prone to violence, that sort of thing. I always think of the punch-drunk ex-boxer kind of guy. And you would think, why would you refer to yourself as something that's so negative? I'm not really. It's more like I understand that people judge a book by the cover. And I know how I come across walking around, And I wear the fedora with the brim bent up. It's that time of year. I'll start doing that again. Again, if I had thought of it, I'd break out the fedora for you. I'm so pro. And I know how people think of me that don't know me well, don't watch the channel or something. Understand there's an intellect here. But I know how I sound. And I remember as a kid, too, if you guys don't know, the Bowery Boys, the Dead End Kids, I think there's a movie, The Dead End Kids, with O'Brien and Cagney. And so there was this group of kids, young actors. And it's crazy to watch because the movies take place like in the 20s. And they're swimming in the Hudson River and crazy stuff in the city. And they're little street hoods. Well, I'll tell you, in the 1970s, we were still like that as kids on the East Coast. Little street hoods running around, taking what we could find. Anything that wasn't nailed down was free. You know what I'm saying? Living on the street, learning everything on the street. Having adult lives on the street, and then still going home and, having parents. It was crazy. But there was total freedom. And back then, those kids didn't even have parents, some of them. They were living on the street. But that's the Dead End Kids. And so that became the Bowery Boys. So they were in a few movies. Angels. Something with angels. Angels' Dirty Faces or something. There's a bunch of great flicks from like the 30s into the 40s featuring this group of kids. Satch. Hunts Hall is one of them. I used to know all their names. I can't remember it all now. Look at me. I'm old. Don't expect too much from me with the memory thing. All right. So they spun off and started making their own movies. And they're great. The Bowery Boys meet Frankenstein. The Bowery Boys meet Dracula. Right in line with Lewis and Costello, right? Abbott and Costello. And Costello was from Patterson, by the way. And, so there's all these movies I grew up watching on Saturday mornings. And Satch, I think it was Satch. the leader there, he wore the fedora with the brim bent up, and he was kind of the leader of the crew, and he was like this little guy, and he was like he was always willing to punch you in the head, so everybody's like, okay. Like in stature, no big deal, but the guy who's willing to crack you one, you listen to that guy. Nobody likes getting punched in a kisser, you know what I'm saying? But he always wanted to seem smarter than he actually was, and he wasn't dumb, but he would use the wrong words, you know, and he would use big $3 words, and you would laugh because you would get it. And I laugh at myself all the time when I'm talking because I use these. I have a pretty decent vocabulary. I can read. But I hear myself use a big word every once in a while, and I laugh because that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the Bowery Boys. So for me, Paluca, that's what it conjures up. And I know that, and there's plenty of films that have depicted this. People often that are seen as a Paluca type of character really have a lot going on, intellectually speaking. So, and also there's a juxtaposition, there's an irony there. And this is what this whole video is about. Whew. Finally getting there, Mike. It's about stinking time. You're boring the hell out of me. So, which is this. I got into watches, and I'm doing my own research, and I'm watching all these watch channels. And in my opinion, there needs to be a guy like me out there doing watch videos because there's not a lot of blue collar dudes, man. I don't even, there probably is. Maybe you can tell me who they are. But it's guys like they're talking about these watches and they understand horology, and horology is not about whores. It's a funny word, man. Well, now we get to the Bowery Boy vibe here, you know, the Paluca vibe. You know, if I said I'm into horology, if you would have said that to me as a kid, hey, you know about horology? I'd be like, well, you talking about Lisa, that lady that lives down the road that, you know, guys are in and out of her house all day? You know what I mean? You know, like, I'm thinking horology. That's what I'm thinking. That's not what it is. Horology is actually I don't know how to, it's the scientific, I am sad. What's the friggin' term? It's the term that all of watchdom falls under. I should just have the friggin' fedora on. You know what I'm saying? Like a baker. Like he's not just a baker. He's baking bread and pastries and everything. I don't know. There's a better way to put this. And if I was more professional, I would have thought this out and written something down first before I started this freaking video. You know what I'm saying? Horology is the world of watches. That's what it is. And so these guys are doing these videos and they're well dressed. And they got the desk. And they're really talking about the movement and the history of the movement, difference between this movement and that movement, and the jewels and what they mean, and the complications in the watch. And but you know, it's good to learn this stuff. You want to learn it. I want to know what the hell I'm talking about. Just knowing the nomenclature of a watch. This is a dive watch. This dive watch is water resistant. They call it water resistant now. If you see waterproof on the back of a watch, that dates the watch to I don't even know, probably like pre-65 or something like that. And after that, they start putting water resistant because, yeah, nothing's really 100% waterproof. You start getting down to a certain depth, it's no longer waterproof. You understand what I'm saying? So you got the case. That's the part that the movement's in. You got your case back. You got your crown. This one happens to be at about 4 o'clock. This happens to be a bezel. It's a timing bezel. So you can tell for diving, you put that in there. You know how much oxygen you got in your tanks. And then you set that little arrow there to the minute hand. And then you'll know, right? They're markers on the dial. Some people call them indices. This has a day-date complication right there. So you can see the day of the week and the date that it is. There's the hour hand, the minute hand, the second hand. The minute track is printed on the dial going around, has all the little minutes marked. These are the lugs of the case. This is the lug width. Lug length is lug to lug this way. Case width is measured this way. So there's all this stuff that you learn. Automatic movement means it's self-winding. It's got a rotor in there. Mechanical manual watch is when you have to wind, like this Waltham or this pocket watch, okay? Then there's quartz, the quartz crisis of watches, man. It practically destroyed the watch industry at one time. It shrank all these companies. Companies went bankrupt, a lot of them. And that was a thing that runs on a battery. I've got a kinetic watch in there. That is a battery operated watch that, it has a rotor that moves, and there's a capacitor in there. And as the rotor moves like an automatic, it actually charges the battery that's in it. And that's what keeps it running. So I can go on and on and on. There's all kinds of different movements. Accutron made a watch that's got a tuning fork in it, and that's what runs the watch. I mean, it's crazy the stuff that they've come up with. Bottom line is, you want to tell the friggin' time. But as humans, we can't help ourselves. Build a better mousetrap. It's like, make it more interesting. I just got an offer for a watch. It's like a $700 watch that's a copy of a watch that's $500,000. And it's got planets on it and everything. I might take advantage of it, make a video of it, because it's so utterly ridiculous and something I would never wear in a million years. But that's there. So I'm fascinated by all stuff, and it's fun. And again, with the Paluca watch channel thing, I just finally came up with a logo. Now, this is just a sketch. This is not the final. This is not what I want the logo to look like. It's just the idea of the logo. Hope that's reading on camera there. The Paluca watch channel's got the fedora. There's a dive watch there. Now, I got a goof on Pat. Pat and the Cat. He's got a band there. He's in New York State. Great dude. He's done a lot for the channel. He made the theme song for the channel. Of course, I'm not editing, so it's not in every video. I've only posted it here once. You guys gave him crap for it, and he revamped it, made it more rock and roll. We should do a whole nother version. I told him, like, my thing is of course, I grew up with Springsteen, and he just really irks me the last, 20 years. But his music is the soundtrack of my youth. But there's a great song by him, which is, It's Hard to Be a Saint in the City. That's the vibe I like, for me personally. At any rate, Pat is also kind of a wizard with, Photoshop and whatnot. And he does his own band promotion stuff. And he's been a silk screener for years and all that. So I sent him that yesterday, and I sent him a bunch of images and schematics of watches, because I don't want it to be sketchy. I could do that myself. I want that watch to be exact, like a mechanical drawing of the actual watch. But on the dial, I've decided on the script here, we're going to have my email address and my actual logo for my business there. And hopefully we can find a font that kind of looks like what's here. But you get the picture, man. Fedora on the watch. And again, it's the juxtaposition of this, like going back to what I'm seeing on YouTube and everything with these watch channels, with all these guys talking about mostly high-end watches. Now, you do have a lot of guys on there that review micro brands and Chinese-made watches, AliExpress watches, and that's really cool. They get a lot of views. This is not a watch channel. As you guys know here, I do everything on this one channel. It's all over the place, but I think that's fun for you. I've never been a one-trick pony. I've always said I just want to keep my life interesting, so that's what I'm doing here. But there are different levels of watches, and there's plenty of channels that review it, but I don't see a lot of guys out there like me that are coming from it, like blue-collar guys, especially veterans. There are veteran stuff. Watches of Espionage is a fun channel to watch. All the good channels do review military watches, dive watches, that sort of thing. But the whole thing about it is, and the reason why I wear tougher watches, dive watches, is a dive watch is more shock resistant. If it's waterproof, it's going to be dust proof. It's going to have a thicker crystal. It's designed for abuse. And I'm working in a shop. I'm working on the truck. I'm, boom, boom, boom. I'm using tools. My buddy who worked in a machine shop beat the hell out of this watch. By the way, this now has a sapphire crystal. I had to replace the movement, so I put a colored day date wheel in it. Then I replaced the date wheel with a loomed date wheel, so now it has symmetrical loom. It's really cool. But I brought this watch back to life. He killed it just by wearing it in a metal shop every day, beating the piss out of it. He's got a Rolex. He does the same thing to it. He has a vintage, probably from the 50s, Omega Seamaster, a small one that doesn't have a bezel on it. He's doing the same thing. He's beating the hell out of it. Then I made him a band for his Again, I'm so pro I don't have it out. But I made him the band for his, he has a Seiko Willard as well. And he's beating the piss out of it. And he showers in it and everything. It's just crazy. So I'm saying there's guys out there like myself. Some of you are like this. And you don't wear a watch because you've broken all your watches or because of what you do for a living. But there are watches that are tough enough that can take it at least for a while. Now, getting to these other channels who are reviewing all these high-end watches, there's an irony here. You can spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on a watch, a Rolex, for, let's say, or an Omega. We're going to get into this. I still haven't gotten to the point in this video of what happened this week. It's coming. And the funny thing about those watches is they cost all this money, and then if it's an automatic, let's just talk about automatic watches. You have to wear that watch for it to perform. Those watches require, they have to be cleaned, they have to be lubricated, and there's multiple different lubricants that are used in different parts of the movement for it to work accurately and perform correctly. And if you, let's say you have one of these watches and you don't wear it, and it sits in a box for 5 years, you can't just put that on and expect it to work because the lube is dried up. It's like jelly in there now, or crust. You got to bring it to a watch shop. They got to take the whole watch apart, take the whole movement apart, clean every part, put it back together with the proper lube, and now you got to wear it. And let's say you do wear it. Let's say it's your favorite watch. You wear it for about 5 to 10 years, knocking around everything else. Guess what? It needs a service again. The servicing for these expensive watches could be hundreds of dollars, could be $1,000, could be $2,000. Depends on the watch and what it needs. So the more expensive watches cost you a crap ton of money, and then they cost you a crap ton of money to keep running properly. I could buy a watch that's 30 years old, get it shipped to me, bought on YouTube, used, been sitting in somebody's drawer forever, probably 10 or 15 years, arrives, set the time, go like this a couple times, it keeps perfect time. Not serviced, nothing. I'll bring it to Mike. He'll put it on the, and I have the machine. I don't even need to use it because Mike's awesome. There's Mike and Vartan, father-son routine, Majestic WJ, watches and jewelry. They repair jewelry. They work on watches. Mike's been certified for Rolex, Omega, Breitling. He's gone through all the courses for all those over the years, and he used to keep that up too, you know, because every year you got to kind of like redo it and pay all this money. I don't think he bothers with that anymore. Like, he has a reputation. People that own Rolexes and whatnot just bring him the watch now. But I'll let him regulate the watch. Every once in a while, he'll take the mainspring out and dip it for me and kind of clean it off, put it back in, and the thing runs perfect. Perfect. Because Seiko figured out how to make an automatic watch that doesn't need lubrication. So, and Seiko has so much variety. I'll have to break out. We'll do a video on the Seiko collection. Here's 3 different Seiko watches. You know, I mean, they have so much variety. It's so much fun with Seikos. And you could buy them used and save a bunch of money, and that's my thing. Now, Greg, who's my client, who I'm doing this job for in Lake Arrowhead right now. I'm doing all that cherry work and the live edge work and everything. Came by this week. We met because of a watch, right? So I think he was watching Wonder Hussy's channel, and then he watched my stuff, and then he saw this watch I bought, which was a Swiss watch from the 70s that was sold by Sears. It had Sears on the dial, and it was a disappointment. It was one of the few times. I've been burned a few times with watches, purchases on eBay. And this one was one of those watches. It did not work like the guy said it did, but it was in really good condition. The case, the dial, the crystal, excellent condition. Brought it to Mike, and Mike kept it hostage for the better part of a year. Eventually got it running, but he didn't put the rotor back on it. And so this guy had met, I think he wrote me a comment or something. Then he showed up to an event, and I think it was the Baghdad Cafe event. I'm not sure if that was it or if it was a Zicopoulos event. Greg will remind me. And he showed up, wanting to meet me, wanted to see Sarah, and he told me he wanted that watch. And I explained him the situation. He says, well, I'd still be interested in buying it from you. So I sold it to him. And one of the parts was missing. So he got back to me, and I went to the watch shop, and that guy I think he gave me a whole other movement for it, plus the part. And I gave that to Greg, and that was the day we sat over here. And Greg always buys me lunch, Greg. I love you, man. You are such a nice guy. And this, you look at Greg, and I'm not picking on Greg. He knows I say this to him all the time. Because you look at him, he's like 70. He's like kind of like an old looking guy, right? And, don't judge the book by the cover. That dude has lived a cool life. He had a good job, made good money. He's married to a awesome woman who's still pretty and has great sense. His wife Janine is just, I can't say enough about the both of them. They're just so cool. But that guy, they were both riding motorcycles. She used to ride a trike. She once had Huelhauser on the back of her trike. I guess this is an episode. I still haven't even looked it up. Greg's a cool guy. 4x4 guy. Oh, we have a lot of things in common. And so we're having lunch one day, and he tells me about this house in Lake Arrowhead, and that's what led to the whole thing. So he comes into town this week, and he actually brought me some money, which was great because I need it, because this project's just been taking too long. And we went over to Barney's and ate. I did a little video there. Some of you may have seen it. And we walk into I told him I want to go to this watch shop, which is over there. So quick story on that. I was watching watch stuff. I watch a lot of watch content. It's funny. Watch. I do hashtag, and I go, porn is a funny word. Because if you say knife porn, hashtag, you hit the hashtag, knives will pop up. Bowie knife porn. Boom. It'll be nothing but Bowie knives. Because, that's, guys are minded this way. Brass belt buckle porn. Boom. It'll be nothing but brass belt buckles. Well, if you do watch porn, I'm not telling you to watch porn. You see, there's a thing there. There's a thing there. I'm telling you, watch porn. It's about watches, not watch porn. Just had to get that out there. I had to clarify that. I watched this video with, it was just a funny thing. It was Fred Savage. I think on the thumbnail was a Blancpain that he was wearing. It was like, I think it was like a 58 Blancpain dive watch. It was probably a $40,000 watch or more. You might remember Fred Savage from the Wonder Years back in the 90s. And so he's been into watches a long time. He really likes used watches. And he's on this podcast with these two big black guys. I don't know if they were in sport. I don't know anything about them. I've never seen their channel before, but they were super cool, really into watches. It was so funny. Fred Savage is sitting between this little tiny guy, these two giant black guys in these club chairs. It looked like they could eat him like a snack, like just like bite his head off. They're just big giant dudes, man, and cool, super cool dudes. And he's wearing a Blancpain, and it blew my friggin' brain apart. I was like, holy cow, like this guy could be into anything. And he's into vintage watches. And in particular, he's into this. And he mentioned this shop called Wanna Buy a Watch. And they talked about him on another channel called Hodinky. You would think I'd know that. I don't know it. But apparently Hodinky was started by this guy, and he started talking about watches and the watch community and how watches work and everything else. I think it was 2007, 2008. And apparently Hodinky, he turned it into a gold mine. He turned it into this big company, doing interviews on it and fashion and style and all these other things. And watches was obviously big part of it. And apparently an interview that Fred Savage did on that channel was a big deal in the horological world. Again, horological world, not about horse. Although a whore would probably take a watch and trade. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. So both videos, he mentions Wanna Buy a Watch and how cool it is. Me and Greg go in there the other day. They got a vintage Gruen watch sign neon up there. It's so cool. And you go in, and they got a security guy at the door, which I didn't even pay attention to. He opened the door for us. I'm dressed like a Paluca. I'm dressed like a Paluca, like I always am. I'm right out of the shop. Got my hat on that I designed, and the blue denim hat. And beautiful lady working behind the counter named Kim. It's a beautiful blonde lady. I don't want to age her, but just saying. What a sweetheart. What a smile on her. And you walk over. There's wall cases. There's cases here, and there was the Anacars and the Bulivas and lady watches and then there's Rolex here, but there's Omega, and I've been looking for a watch. What I want whatever you get into watches and you start wanting a watch for certain things, or you want to reward yourself with a watch because you achieved something, or I did a big job, I got the money, I'll splurge a little bit on a watch. Watches for most people, unlike me, I just buy watches sometimes because I think they're cool. But I've been wanting a birth year watch, which is 1966. So I keep looking, and there's been some Seikos and that sort of thing that are affordable to me. But I'm like, nothing really tickles my fancy. And I like typically a watch that's at least a 40 millimeter watch for the size of my wrist. And there's the Omegas, and there's this beautiful Omega Seamaster 300 there, which is, it's kind of rare. It has a bezel that looms. The loom is pretty much shot on the watch, but the bezel again, this part. And I think that one was a ceramic bezel. I had like glass over it, and you hit it with the torch, and there's loom in there, and it holds a little bit. But the hands on the dial markers, the indices don't hold the loom anymore. At any rate, I see the watch. It's got twisted lugs. It's just beautiful. It's art. This is art. It's automatic. It's been serviced. It's ready to go. I ask her, hey, what year is that watch? 1966. I have to have this. It's a $5,400 watch. Now, this particular watch, if you looked it up on eBay right now, like the lowest you see is about $8,000. They're mostly like $8,000 to $12,000. So $5,500. Of course, it's not pristine. It's not pristine. There's scratches on the case back, and it's got wear and all that stuff, which is why it's more affordable. That's a lot of money to spend on a watch. It's, that's not really affordable for a lot of people. But I'm like, you know what? I could probably sell a few things and come up with that. I really do want that watch. They have a layaway there I could do. But I'm talking to her, and she's so cool. We start talking. I'm going to get up and get something. We start talking about all this different stuff. And, style watches. Greg's looking at a couple watches. I think Greg's going to go back and buy one or two watches there. Their prices are extremely affordable. I mean, considering it's right there on Melrose by Melrose Place, right by La Cienega. That's a very expensive, ritzy area. And, I mean, she's from Pennsylvania. She used to go to the Jersey Shore. She knows my hometown. I told her I used to work on the boardwalk every summer. When I asked her name, it blew me away because her name's Kim. And I'm like, well, that's Mike spelled backwards, which was a line I used on a girl back in the day, and it worked. And then I think this lady's married. There's nothing like that going on. She was just a real sweet lady. But there was something else with the Kim thing that I forget now. Oh, the first girl I ever French kissed when I was 11 years old at summer camp. Kim Cherico, man. She did it. She stuck her tongue in my mouth. It blew my mind. It changed my life, man. So Kim has been a name in my life for a long time. And then I was telling her, like, I'm kind of like more of this blue collar guy. I've been doing watch review videos. They got a lounge in there. It's like a coffee house. It's beautiful. It's so cool. And I got along with her very well. And I was telling her how some companies have sent me watches to do reviews. And I told her about this company, the True North Watch Company. So he does these watches that are homage watches to Rolex and whatnot. And he does exact copies. This is a copy of the Paul Newman Daytona, which originally had an automatic Valjoux movement in it, because when Rolex made this, they didn't even really make the movement for it yet. But he gets a lot of, we're still rolling here. He gets a lot of good credit. People like his watches, and a lot of big time watch people are talking about his stuff. He's very good at marketing. I bought his version of the Tournek Revel Blancpain dive watch, and I did a review on it, and he liked it so much that he sent me this watch. Now, this watch came on a bracelet that was made for it, not this one. And he wasn't stoked with the review I did, because during the review I mentioned another one I had seen where when you zoomed in on it, one of the subdials looked like it was cut out with a jigsaw, and he got pissed that I said that. But this one was perfect. I don't know what his problem was, but we had this back and forth text thing that really turned me off because he was upset over nothing. Now, this is a vintage sterling silver N-Link bracelet here, real turquoise on it, with this vintage Spidell elastic. It's in perfect condition, and it's perfect for this watch because that was what was common in the 70s. Turns out Greg shows up when we go in that. He's wearing 2 watches, and on one wrist he's got the Apple Watch with one of these bands on it. And she loved it, and so we started talking about that. We started talking about True North. I couldn't remember the name of it. She goes, True North? I'm like, yeah. She pulls out this card. It's like a tray, and it's full of like 20 True North Watch Company watches. She goes, this is the guy. I'm like, holy crap. What I'm getting at is I walk in there, I see my birth year watch. She's super cool. There's a connection, horologically speaking. We won't go there this time. And then there's this thing where I'm telling her this guy sent me a watch I've done a review on, and she's got a bunch of watches like presumably he brought in. That's not the place to sell his watch, but he's trying to break into that. He patinas the dials. He's making beautiful watches. He did a version of this watch with green and blue and red colors. It's like a green dial, and it's become this collectible watch. I don't even know what he's selling it for, but I think people are charging thousands of dollars for this watch now because it's so cool, just cool looking. He's putting decent quartz movements in these. I think some of them now have automatic movements. I should really do the research. I should talk to him, but it's a weird personality thing. I'm not talking shit about him. He's a cool guy. He saw the leather I made for this, like a tough guy Paul Newman version, and he wanted me to make cuffs for him, but I'm not going to do that. I make them for me. I charge a lot of money for what I do. That's what I'm getting at now. Finally, this video's about over. It's all about watches. There were so many other things I wanted to tell you. So what I'm getting at with all this has been part of my life since I was a kid. It's become part of my life now. I've taught myself how to make the leather bands and the cuffs and everything else. Now people are sending me their watches, and I'm making these, and it's a good side hustle. I can make some money with it, and I feel like this place. And I'm hanging out in another watch shop, but they're not really about selling watches. I really want to. I'm hoping I can endear myself to those guys over there that want to buy a watch. I'm hoping we'll do some video content there. And it's just the future for me. I'm trying to think of ways that I can make money where I'm not beating myself up physically anymore, because you see me in the shop, and at the end of the day of throwing lumber around all day, I can't do it. I'm only working 4 to 5 hours, and I got to take breaks, and my back's killing me at the end of the day, and my feet hurt and everything else. So I have to be thinking of ways to move to another. I'll keep building custom furniture. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to keep doing it. I love doing it. I'm good at it. But I have to move to the point where, like I'm doing the project now, I only want to take on, I did this for a long time. I was a snob where I only took on art projects. And then I got to the point where, like, depending on who the president is, believe it or not, the Obama years, I barely held on by my fingernails. That guy screwed the economy up so bad. When Trump came in the first time, I was saying no to work, and I got back to doing art. And then the 4 years of Biden, again, it was like the bottom fell out again. And now it's going to pick up again. And so when people have money to spend and all that, that's when because I'm not a need guy, I'm a want guy. So I'll build you a beautiful dining room table, you're going to pay for it. And I don't mind that. If I'm making enough money on the piece, I can take my time with it and still make money on the back end at the end. That's always going to happen. But if I could find other ways to make money, that's a thing. And the only way to do that is you can't be an island. You have to network with people. So discovering want to buy a watch and seeing where I'm at, there's going to be more of that content here. And again, I got the Instagram page, which is Paluca Watch Channel. Give that a check. Go to the Instagram, like the page. Click. I only have like 100 subscribers or something there. But hopefully that'll turn into something. I know this is not for everybody here. But one thing I've learned. When I started this channel, it was all over the place. I did a canteen review. I did tomahawk handles I was replacing. I did a survival shirt thing. I did some motorcycle trip stuff. And when I started doing the Astrovan content, that's when it started picking up. That's why it's Astrovan Tribe. And then as I was talking more, the comments became more about what I was talking about and making people laugh and that sort of thing. That's why the channel morphed into me talking all the time. And then people egged me on to do the comedy, so I throw more laughs in there. And I've been writing a lot of that stuff down. And I did find the comedy place last night. It is there. It's a block past Vine right here on Melrose. So I'm going to walk into there pretty soon. So you guys have been kind of motivating me to do all kinds of things. At the same time, because this channel is so diverse, at first I was getting negative comments. Like, hey man, I'm here for the Astrovan content. I'm not interested in Bowie knives. I'm not interested in this or that. And then slowly but surely what happened was people started coming and watching more of the videos on subject matter that they didn't come here for. And what's happened is I've turned a lot of you people on to so many other things. And I'm able to, what I know is happening is I'm enriching your lives, many of you, in another way. And so many of you have gone into drawers and pulled out your father's watch or your grandfather's watch. And some of you, I think 4 or 5 people at least now, maybe half a dozen people, sent watches to Mike to be serviced so you can wear the watch again. Bring it back, man. Bring back the wristwatch. It's a thing. It's cool. It's cool. When your phone runs out of a charge, I got a drawer full of phones. These are all dead phones, man. It's phones. There's more phones. There's 30-year-old watch still working, bro. Still working. Tells the time. Does what it's supposed to do, and it's cool. It's cool. So actually, this isn't the 30-year-old watch. This is the 30-year-old watch. I got so many friggin' watches. I don't even know what friggin' watch I'm wearing. This wrist is a little bit bigger. Might not fit on this wrist. It's gonna be snuggerer. There we go. Real quick on this watch, I just want to say Kevin O'Leary. He's a bald guy. He does Shark Tank. He's always wearing a watch on each hand. He's big on red bands. Of course, this guy can afford $1 million watch. He's a fun guy. He's a smart guy. He's conservative minded. And he actually was wearing a version of this watch, the one with all the color on it, and talking about how cool it is. And that is a coup for the guy that owns the True North Watch Company. And that's a big deal. So it's just interesting. So I hope I can break into this a little bit with the Paluca Watch Channel angle. I think it would be fun to possibly, you've seen me do some interviews here. I'd love to do more interviews. But I think it'd be a lot of fun because I don't know everything there is to know about anything, really. Even with the woodworking. I just know what I know, what I've taught myself, what works for me. But it would be a lot of fun, I think, with my sense of humor and my sensibility and the way I speak to be talking to other people in the watch community about this stuff because it would bring a level of humor. Now, I can be a little crass at times and a little adult. You've heard it here. They might not like that so much. But you will. I think that everybody who's into horology appreciates the fact that there's new people from different perspectives and different walks of life coming in and bringing attention to the community, because the people that sell things that you need for watches, whether it be tools or straps or whatever, the companies that make watches, every time you get another set of eyeballs on your product, it helps. And that's part of capitalism and promoting things. And it's a good networking thing for me. And listen, the people that can afford a lot of these watches are also the same people where if they see what I do and they're like, holy crap, you're a real artist with the woodworking. Well, the guy that owns 20 Rolexes might say, hey, Mike, you mind making me a dining room table? Yeah, no problem, dude. I'll do that for you. Because I know you can afford me. So that's it. You guys have a good day. Be kind to one another. I hope you got a kick out of this. This is my watch history. This has been a Paluca Watch Channel production. How's that sound? Screen print's going to come soon. It's going to be a t-shirt. Hope you guys buy one. I'll catch you in the next one. Be good to one another. Help one another out. Do some networking yourselves, man. Uplift one another. Stay positive.